Anyway, I'll go through my story, which is very different to the other three guys. I really fell into this, and it was nothing planned. And the other big difference is that, and I knew early on that I wouldn't be travelling overseas with Reece. And before we took all this on, I sort of made it clear that it's right at just at not a good time when I can afford to get away with my other commitments. So that meant we had to plan around that, to knowing that. And Philo, you'll probably be able to fill people in a little bit more on what happened at the training camps, and also obviously at in the village. But so I first came across Reece when we're at Albert Park Lake, and this guy turned up and introduced himself and asked if he could join in, and I said, yeah, no problems. He asked what's your name, where you from, and didn't know anything about him at all. Found out that Philo had done some work with Reece, Dick Telford, pretty much. I think Matty Beckham. I think he'd gone through most of the coaches in Canberra. That was a little bit of a red flag, but anyway. So I actually didn't know, and I didn't pick up his condition at all. And actually, when I look back at it, it's probably a good thing, because most of the guys in the group, we just, it was Reece. It wasn't, a T38 athlete. And he mentioned something to me early on about it, but I still really didn't have much of an idea of what it all involved. Until I went to this meeting at I got called into a meeting at the VIS, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. What's this all about? And worked out that he was getting supported and that he was at a good level. And wow, it was a real insight. So I walked into the meeting, and there would have been 8 people in the meeting, and I said, hey, I've got to be out of here in about 40 minutes. Can we get on a bit sooner rather than later? Well, after 35 minutes, running had not even been mentioned. We had all sorts of things going on, and so I butted in. I said, hey, I do have to go. Can we get on to the running part? And then I said, oh, Reece, and this was the first inkling to me of things that I had to deal with. And I said, oh, how are you going with all this? And he said, oh, I'm absolutely petrified. And so he really does get anxious, and Philo, you might remember that before races, and that sort of scene, and we made sure that didn't happen again. So I really had to get to know, because I'd never coached, a para athlete or a T38 as in Reece's case before. So one of the challenges for me, and we're talking August, September 2022, and about 2 years out from the games, less than a year out from the World Champs. So I had to find out as much as I could about him, and really build up a good relationship with him, and really important to build up some trust with him. And he'd come from Canberra, as I mentioned, and different various coaches there. So I had to really work on making sure he trusted the training that I did, which not that different, but it was things that he wasn't used to. And also get to know the anxiety, and that's something that came up in a few of the early races. And the other thing that I started to find out about was that he seemed okay, but there were things that really affected him, and hot or cold. And I still remember early on, as you know, in November, December, you can still get some pretty cold days up at Fernie, and he was running up there, and he collapsed, and that was due to the extreme cold. Heat and cold was something that it affects him, and he's about to head up to Falls Creek, or he's on his way there today, and that's a strategy now we have to put in place. If it's cold, he goes on the treadmill. He rugs up. He does things that are going to make sure that we work around his condition. But it meant then that we didn't have a lot of time, and so this trust that we're talking about in the first season, I came across another thing that I found that I had to work hard with, and that was I had to be really specific with instructions to him, and this became important. The fact that I wasn't going to be at the World Champs or the Olympics. It really came home to roost when he was running a race in Canberra, and I was there, and there was no call room, and we decided he was going to sit in regardless of what happened. He was to sit in this race. And actually, Brad Hall was in the race. The gun goes off, and within 50 metres, Reece is leading, even though 2 minutes earlier I told him not to lead. So he led most of the race. Brad out-kicked him at the end. And talking to him later, I said, well, Reece, what happened there? And he said, oh, no one was going to lead. And so that brought home to me that even though we had gone over it, you have to really drill in instructions and say, it doesn't matter, Reece, if someone doesn't lead, it's not, well, you stick to the plan. So these were things, sort of trial and error, that through, 20, leading up to the World Champs, he qualified well. And one of the really, I suppose, how it worked out for the Paralympics is to have that preparation in Paris, in 2023, and a lot of things that we did then we were able to rectify. He struggled with the travel. He struggled with being away from home. The conditions in Montpellier the first year weren't great, and he didn't have a great experience there. But these were all learning experience and things we were able to improve on. And in the next year, he not being able to travel offered a challenge, so therefore we had to work out for his preparation for the Olympics this year that he would leave it as late as possible to go to Montpellier. So therefore his training needed to be done in Australia, and it needed to be specific to what would happen, what we would sort of predict might happen in Paris this year. So what I learned from 2023 was that we needed more time trials, we needed more race-specific training, and then also we needed to have some meaningful hit-outs in Australia. And we were able to do that over in Perth. Reece was able to join in with Matt Ramsden's group, and they put on a couple of races over there. The weather was warm, conditions were good, and he actually ran really well. His preparation was terrific. In Melbourne, we kept the same routine. Tuesday, he'd go to Lakeside or Sandringham if Lakeside wasn't available. And we were lucky enough to get a couple of training guys who sort of basically spent the winter helping him get ready to go over to Paris this year. The difference this year to last year was that it was later, but it was still going to be warm, and so he needed the heat acclimatisation, which in Melbourne we had a lot of the things we needed. The VIS was terrific. He had a lot of support there. So again, though, there are a lot of challenges along the way. He had a reclassification, and I noticed before that his training went off. And in hindsight, I should have changed his training before that came up, because he actually got really stressed, and I only found out really that that's a pretty thorough and exhausting program for them to go through. One of the things, though, that, as I said before, that needed to build up trust and a relationship with him, I really worked hard on getting to know me and me to getting to know him. Luckily, he loves soccer like I did, and we found some really good interests outside of running that really helped him going and made it sure that we would get on really well. The basis of my training is a lot to do with that. Besides the time trials that we're doing, I actually got him to run all across countries, and he did the 10K, he did the 16K, the 10K road, the 16K cross country, the shorter cross countries, the Sandown relays, and even though they weren't specific to the track races, I really felt that they helped him in getting ready for races, because we weren't leaving, we weren't going to leave Australia. His sessions generally were, on the Tuesday on the track, he'd do the 8K session. He really 8K work, and pretty sort of standard stuff that I'm sure you guys know that we do, but always from early on, always finish with something really fast. And that was for two reasons. One is that I felt he needed it, and two, Reece loved it. Loved nothing better than getting on the spikes and getting out and running something fast, a 300 or 200. I did fudge a couple of his times to make him feel even better, but I would say physically he had a fantastic preparation. He went over to Perth and he had a race there and ran a PB in that. And so really up until, pretty much, I think he had, and maybe Philo could tell me a little bit more about what went over there, but I don't think there were any problems. Were there, Philo, when he ended up over in Montpellier?
He was in really good shape, and it was good. You're talking about his struggles the previous year. He was a different athlete this year, just the way he handled it. He integrated with the group a lot more. He seemed a lot more confident. I know the living conditions were better, but from what I saw, we were only in Montpellier for 3 days, but then I was with him the week in Paris. He seemed ready. He seemed fit. We did a few of those sessions, like you said, where he ran really fast at the end of the session, looked really good, and he seemed confident. He was in a really good space, I think. So, yeah.
No, and I really appreciate the work that everyone did with him over there. He was after gold, but hey, bronze medal. I think in the end he realised that was a terrific effort. We might have a look at it in a minute, Ned, if you've got it there. One of the, and a lot of these things you talk about what we could have done differently. The one thing I felt that if he had gone to Kobe and run the world champs, the guy who won the Olympic gold medal ran there, and I suppose maybe it's on me a little bit, but I didn't know much about him. We were really focusing on the Canadian who'd won the world champs the year before. So for various reasons, he didn't go to Kobe. He wanted to, but I think that would have helped him, just because the races are so different. They're races that are different to what we have in the domestic season, and the more you can get of those races that they get, the better. You got something here, Ned, have you?
I can roll the tape, but it has no audio on it, so you're going to be our commentator for the last couple of laps. Coming up to 700 metres.
Phil, I can jump in too. You were actually there, PB 3K the other day, and I just feel he's going to keep getting better and better, and I think he's got a few more years, and he might have another Olympics in him. Well, he certainly thinks he has, and I believe he has another Olympics in him. So I could waffle on too, but it's getting late. But if there are any questions you guys want to ask, anything that
excellent, Tim. Thanks for that. From sharing what your lessons you learned, particularly from 2023 through to 24, and then how you adjusted things. Simon's got his hand up. If you want to fire away, Simon.
Yeah, it's not really a question. Obviously, for those that don't know, I coach Angus.
Yeah.
One of the things that sort of resonates for me, and Tim hit it on the head, with the opportunity for Kobe, the opportunity for, especially for Palace, to race is slightly different domestically as what it is racing internationally. We've seen that with for both the Worlds now and Paris with the Paralympics, and they're completely different races. completely different races. And also I think what going back to what Justin said about racing, and not having pacemakers in and it being a race. I personally think having Angus and Reece, if they'd have run their own normal race, then they would have medalled. Pair of them would have medalled. That being out your comfort zone where it is so slow, you know, we just don't do that in Australia. We just don't. It's just not a normal thing for these guys to learn. So that was just an observation I had from being there.
Yeah, no, as I touched on before, I think that there was an opportunity missed, and how we work it in the future, that's well, don't know who's responsible for that, but yeah, it is an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing to point out with that 1500, the lad who actually won it picked up the bronze in the 400. So yeah. You know, with it being such a slow race, we invited in a 400-meter runner into the race. He's a lot faster on paper than everybody else of a 400. So you know, it's how we work through that.
Tim, you've obviously been coaching forever, mate, and you've seen many athletes come and go. But you're saying this is your first para athlete that you've coached. Do like reflecting back on the journey with Reece so far? Do you think it's changed your coaching style? Like I know, like I've got a para athlete that I coach a T20 athlete, and it adds a really kind of great dimension to a training group. Have you found that with Reece?
Yes, no, I'm not sure whether it's changed it, but I'm so pleased that it's come about. And as I said, it was just circumstances. I think, the group have been great for Reece, and Reece has been great for the group. I think it does add a lot to a group, the way they support him. That day I was talking about at Fernie, you know, Garb stopped. They carried him back to the car. They wouldn't let him drive home. And so I think it improves them as people as well. So, and I think one, you know, he's the only one in the group, but if there are others, I think that things wouldn't change, you know, that people do it the same way. The difference, though, as I said before, Gav, I think you probably have to really get close to them and build a good relationship with them and find out a lot more about them, and probably don't leave as much to chance. You know, I felt really bad that day when, you know, he collapsed and I had to take him back to the car. I know it sounds pretty dramatic, but it was pretty dramatic. So no, it's been an enjoyable experience, and so you never know what's around the corner, do you?
No.